Hello again, fellow reef enthusiasts. Welcome back to Craft Aquatic. I'm Matt G. In today's video, I am going to walk you through one entire week of maintenance on our 120-gallon, mostly SPS-dominated mixed reef aquarium. I'll be showing you the daily steps taken to ensure this reef aquarium maintains a consistent trajectory toward success. There are some little tricks and other often neglected weekly tasks that can really help to increase your likelihood of reaching that 5 to 10 year display tank, which I will also discuss in this video. If you enjoy this kind of video, appreciate this kind of information, there is a lot more like it in the Craft Aquatic channel, so maybe consider subscribing if you haven't already. Here we go. There's nothing more gratifying in the reef hobby than when your little slice of ocean inspires curiosity in your friends and your family. Done right, it can really draw out the kid in all of us. There's no better way to ensure a reef display that draws the attention of others than staying consistent with weekly maintenance. Every year you own a reef aquarium, your list of weekly tasks or husbandry will have to adapt to the changing requirements of your reef ecosystem. This is a 3-year-old mixed reef with nearly equal proportions of large polyp and small polyp stony corals, as well as some leathers and gorgonia. In this video, I'm going to focus only on the tasks performed consistently on a weekly basis. Performing regular alkalinity tests is key to success with any type of living coral. Too far of a swing in either direction will need to be realized immediately if you want to save your reef aquarium from disaster. This doesn't mean correcting things quickly if there is a swing. If you want to learn more about what to do if you experience low or high alkalinity, I've made a helpful video that I will post in the description below. I test 3 times a week manually using a magnetic stir. I've found the stir produces more accurate results as you're not having to shake the solution around by hand as you titrate. The change in color is much more gradual, which aids in recognizing a consistent endpoint. Once I test, I immediately log my results for reference. Next up on the Monday husbandry list is to infuse some vitamin supplement into the fish food. To do this, I choose to use Selcon. It contains omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin C, and B12, which will not stagnate or alter the chemistry of the water. The PC pellets are high quality and work well as a delivery system. Basically, I drip one pipette of the Selcon over the PC pellets, and most important, I wait for them to dry out for about 1 hour. I found the soaked and dried pellets maintain the vitamin supplement better, so it gets where it needs to go, which is into the fish's belly rather than clouding up the water and getting taken up by our powerful protein skimmer. It's not just the fish that benefit from this weekly feeding, but all of the invertebrates and filter feeders as well. Last on Monday's to-do list is to check that the pH is stable by glancing at our very reliable pinpoint meter. Also on Monday, I checked the temperature controller, which is the Wi-Fi enabled Inkbird, the Auto Aqua Smart Temperature Backup, and all the various heating and cooling connection points. On Tuesday, it's the coral's turn to be spoiled. At the 3-year point, I am still finding success feeding the coral once a week, which could change soon as the coral bioload steadily increases. I'll keep an eye on phosphate and nitrate levels to gauge when that point has arrived. For now, I like to feed a teaspoon of Coral Frenzy and a half teaspoon of Reefroids, added to a 2-cup measure and mixed directly to the water in the display tank. I'll pause the flow for a half hour using my reef controller so the water comes to a complete standstill. I really love the combination of the Reefroids and Coral Frenzy. The roids tend to cloud up around the coral, while the Coral Frenzy drops various sized bits of food around the polyps. This is a great combination for LPS and SPS coral, giving them plenty of time to soak up the nutrients through their feeding parts as well as absorbing some through their skin. The Coral Frenzy in particular does an excellent job of maintaining suspended particulate in the water column. Some of the pieces are big enough for the fish to graze on in a very natural looking way. Coral really do need to be fed and will reward you with deeper color and healthier tissue if done consistently. In my experience, less is more in a reef tank, if the coral are given the time to feed in a low to no flow environment. After feeding on Tuesdays, I'll take a bit of time to closely examine each individual colony in the tank, especially around the base of the SPS or small polyp stony coral colonies. You can catch coral disease or parasitic infections early on and actually do something about it. I used to use this piranha float to scrape and clean the glass every day. Now I tend to do it a bit less, allowing some algae to populate the glass during the week, always making sure to get a good scrub down on Tuesdays. One tip, don't be afraid to combine different brand magnets if that works better for you. The combo I'm using helps me to clear colonies growing close to the glass while maintaining plenty of grip. For polishing the outer glass, I use a nice clean bar mop with a bottle of 50% water, 50% vinegar, spray the glass liberally and scrub away. The eco-friendly solution cuts through the salt, grease, tiny fingerprints, and will not affect your water chemistry if it gets into the tank. Once I do a preliminary scrub down, I grab a second clean rag and polish the entire thing down. Works great. Wednesday begins with the second alkalinity test of the week, and any slight adjustments need to be made. A word on feeding. I feed flakes 2 times a day, every day, except Monday, when I feed pellets with Celcon. I use these max spec carbon fiber tank tweezers to dunk the flakes below the surface, to get them moving throughout the tank. It's a fun time to observe the fish. They always know when I'm going to feed them, which tends to be right when lights come on in the morning and in the evenings when I am done with work. I change out filter socks on Wednesdays, swapping 2 for a single sock. In this case, I'm running a carbon block which is inserted for a few days once a month. I'll remove that in the old sock, place a single sock back in, and add an additional sock later in the week. The reason for running a single sock for half the week is to allow the skimmer time to do its job a bit more efficiently. Before adding a new sock, I take a bit of time to pull off the bits of fluffy lint that appear after the socks have been washed. These tend to clog up the filters if left to dislodge and float around the sump. The old socks and filter blocks are placed in this blue container for 24 hours to drain off before making their way to the dirty pile. This mushroom container in the bottom allows them to shed the majority of their moisture by elevating them a bit, so I can pour away the runoff and add them to a dry pile of old socks that won't smell like moldy laundry by the end of the month when everything gets washed. The used up carbon block gets placed on a shelf with a note that reminds me if the carbon needs to be changed. I do this because I can technically get 2 uses out of a fresh addition of carbon before needing to replace it altogether. As far as supplements, I dose AquaPower a couple times a week as an amino acid supplement, as well as KZ Flatworm Stop. This is not because I have flatworms, but more for the positive effect the KZ has on my SPS coral tissue. You'll find plenty of information about that if you go to one of the popular Reef forums. The AquaPower and KZ are both dosed directly into the sump right after the protein skimmer chamber, where they can spread evenly throughout the tank once they hit the return chamber. At the 3-year mark, I'm dosing around 50 milliliters of the amino acids and 5 milliliters of the KZ 2 times per week. This seems to work well without increasing the overall nutrients too much. On Thursdays, I get my hands wet. I do my best to keep my hands out of the tank, but the fact is you sometimes just have to get in there and do some heavy lifting. I don't mind a little hair algae, but if I feel it's growing a bit long or infringing on the basal development of new acropora, I'll first try to siphon it out, followed by a good scrubbing with a toothbrush and pipe brush. Next, I grab a spare pump, plug it in, and do what I call dusting the rockwork and substrate. Detritus will settle in the cracks and crevices no matter how perfect and powerful your flow is. For me, it's important to blast all that stuff into the water column once a week so the filter socks and protein skimmer can pull it out. I also do something that is controversial to some reefers, which is intentionally disturbing the substrate with that same pump. This will dislodge any of my heavy gravel that is starting to clump together. It'll make sure that the coral and algae does not fuse to the substrate, and it works some of the detritus into the water column. I'm careful to only dust a couple small sections of the substrate every week as to not cause a nutrient spike. Following the dusting, the water tends to clear right back up in a matter of minutes. When I'm done with dusting, I head down to the basement and grab this algae clip out of my utility bucket. Having an easily accessible place to keep all of my weekly maintenance tools makes daily tank chores much less of a hassle. I feed a 2x3-inch square of nori folded over 3 times. Here I am demonstrating how easily a slick piece of nori will be pulled out of the clip by a big tang, such as our Nassau. You really need to wet the surface of the clip and pre-soak the nori itself in order for it to stick enough so that the fish can tug on it without pulling it out of the clip. Believe me, the nori will not have a chance once it's dunked into the tank if you don't. I am feeding daily a high-quality flake food designed for marine herbivores, so nori once a week is exactly right for this setup. It only takes the tangs a matter of minutes to nibble the nori down to the edge of the clip. Once it's there, I will pull the clip out, break up the nori, and toss the rest back into the tank. It's fine if it sinks, as everything, including the crabs, spotted mandarin, and cleaner shrimp, will seek out the stray chunks. On Fridays, the first thing I do is check the calcium and alkalinity dosing containers to make sure they are moving solution properly. I do this using this very advanced technique of moving a piece of electrical tape every few days so I can visually inspect dosing progress. It's simple yet very effective. I visually inspect the lines for leaks and run the peristaltic pumps briefly to ensure there is no binding. Phosphate in this tank is totally under control so long as I change the GFO out during regular maintenance, which is typically once a month, and inspect the reactor to make sure the flow is causing the media to tumble properly, which should appear as a gentle, consistent turnover. There is the issue of a large population of mysis shrimp in this setup, some of which find their way into the GFO reactor. So next we are going to talk about dosing calcium carbonate or pickling lime, commonly referred to in the hobby as coral snow. The calcium carbonate can be found at most any natural organic food store. Dosing it, which I do every Friday, has several benefits. First off, coral snow acts as a flocculant, very fine particles that carry an electric charge and are attracted to organic molecules. They'll collect the organics that will either be taken up by the coral itself and used as a food source or will be removed by the protein skimmer. Either way, it's making use of natural process to remove dissolved organics from the water. The calcium carbonate has no effect whatsoever on the ionic balance of the mixed salts in the water and will not harm any fish or marine invertebrates such as common snails or shrimp, but will cause harm to one marine invertebrate known as the very undesirable vermitid snail. The reason these snails cannot survive given regular doses of calcium carbonate has to do with how they feed by throwing out mucus nets that gather the pickling lime particles that will eventually clog the entrance to their helical shells. For me, it's just an insurance policy that keeps these pests from proliferating while keeping the coral healthy and water sparkling clean. On Saturday, I performed the last alkalinity test of the week and had 2 more tests. After all that coral feeding, dosing of amino acids, and running coral snow, it's good to see if my phosphate and nitrate levels are in line. Next, I visually inspect the flow in the overflow chamber from 2 separate angles. If the flow is looking restricted, I will work in a return pump cleaning to my Saturday maintenance routine. On Saturday, I also add a second filter sock to the overflow chamber, leaving in the one I added on Wednesday. The protein skimmer gets a good going over as well. This Life Reef skimmer requires minimal maintenance and would probably do fine with a simple weekly draining, but nonetheless I do take the collection cup out to clean it thoroughly. If nothing else, it makes it easier to inspect the neck while it's running, making sure it is set properly, which is also something you rarely need to worry about with a good Venturi-driven skimmer. I will also take a brush to the neck, pushing the skim mate back into the reaction chamber to be pushed into the freshly cleaned cup. I'll put a link to a video about the skimmer in the description below. High-end Venturi skimmers are highly underrated given their rock-solid performance and require almost no maintenance at all, so definitely check them out. Last but not least, on Saturday, I had my chosen 4-part trace element supplement. The Red Sea line is easy to use. I simply base my dose on my calcium uptake. I use this nice caddy I found at our local dollar store to tote the filled dosing cups from the basement to the upstairs reef, and this little task is all wrapped up in a matter of minutes. On Sunday, I try to keep things simple and easy since I'd rather be spending time with family and friends. The tank gets its second dose of amino acids and KZ. I use a digital specific gravity meter to test the salinity and double check the temperature. It used to be that I performed regular 13-gallon water changes on Sunday with a siphon. I have since moved to an auto water change system, so my specific gravity may fluctuate here and there. If it does, I head down to Mr. Salty, our auto water change mixing station, and make light adjustments to the salinity of the makeup water. There's a full build video about this system in the description below. I use the same electrical tape monitoring technique as in the calcium and alkalinity dosing containers, just to ensure there are no issues with the peristaltic water exchange system. If Mr. Salty is empty, I simply flip a few valves and make some fresh mixed salt water. So that is about it. Thank you for checking this video out. I'm hoping it was helpful, though I do realize weekly maintenance tasks vary greatly from system to system, especially when it comes to age. When it comes down to it, there's nothing more important than maintaining consistency when caring for a delicate reef aquarium, and one of the easiest ways to do that is to make a daily maintenance list and stick to every detail on it. To a degree, with a lot of those tasks, it doesn't matter when and exactly how you choose to do things, so long as you stick to your plan. Hey, thank you again for watching Craft Aquatic. Please do hit the thumbs up, subscribe. Let me know how much time you spend on maintaining your reef aquarium on a weekly basis. I'd love to hear from you. Always glad to have you. I'll see you on the next video.